you would be shocked to realize just how much you're limiting your life based on the stories that you're telling yourself. And so many of these stories are not even yours to begin with. You've picked them up along the way from other people, from media, from society, from your culture, from your education. They're not original. They're not true to you. But regardless, you've bought into them. And now they're your stories. And now they're limiting yourself. And these stories are little things, subtle things that you may not even notice. They're sort of running in the background, keeping your life contained, your sense of self in this loop of a familiar pattern, which seems real. It seems like this is who you are. But really, it's just a collection of stories. It's just a complex of ideas that you have practiced and repeated. And now it's the lens, the filter through which you see the world. You see others, and you see yourself. And at no point, ever, do these stories become real. They only seem real because they're all that you know. But at any point, you can tell yourself a different story. You can rewrite the story of your life. You can change the narrative. You can swap out the characters that you've identified with. And you can experience your life in a completely different way. This is a possibility. And in fact, you're always doing this, except that you're not doing it consciously. You can just as easily replace one story from your history with a story that you'd prefer to tell that you might be placing in your future. And rather than experiencing the repeat of your past in this present moment, you can bring the future right into the present moment and experience who you want to be right now, without limitation. And it only requires imagination. It only requires the courage to get beyond the repetition and the familiarity of this sense of self, which has become so rigid and identified. It's as if it's solidified into an idea or a concept in and of itself, a self-concept, a self-story. But it's malleable, it's plastic, it's pliable. You can play with it. You can mold yourself into whatever you want the experience of yourself to be. You can author your own story. You can rewrite the script of the relationship you have to yourself. And you can instantaneously experience yourself in an entirely new light, with an entirely new plot. And this is the freedom that you have as the creator of your reality, as the author of your story. And that really is a freedom unlike any freedom that you can gain from securing or acquiring or accomplishing or improving anything within the confines of a limited story, but rather rewriting the story altogether. That's an unlimited freedom. That's a freedom which is born of your own creative spirit, rather than the rules of a system, rather than the ways of a world. You see, within the confines of your own imagination, you have no confines. You have no limits. You're only limited by your own imagination. You're only contained to your own capacity to dream. And at some point, as you practice this and you master this self-story, your own self-authorship, you'll start to realize that actually any story, even if it's one that's originated by yourself, that you've created, is a limitation. And at some point along the way, when the moment is ripe, when you've realized the truth of who you are, then the only thing left is to be completely storyless, to be so immersed in the moment, to be so present, to be so aware, to be so conscious of the truth of what you are, that all stories are relinquished, all stories are surrendered, and you find yourself at the heart of the moment, which is an unspeakable freedom, a glory so profound that you can never imagine a story as beautiful, as vibrant, as perfect as the story that is already here and now as what you are. And that true self, that eternal moment, which is the now moment, which is always already here and now, is beyond stories. It's beyond the capacity to even attempt to confine anything to a concept, to a linear progression, to an idea of any kind. Because that true self, this very moment, as it is, as you are, is beyond imagination. It's beyond romance. It's beyond fantasy. It's beyond anything that the mind can come up with. And from that realization, all stories are like child's play. And you wake up to the truth of who you are, and you see the perfection of life as it is. And then you've truly remembered the freedom and the fulfillment that you've always already been.